Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, NMRA.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Hope you enjoy the show. Hope you come back often and tell your friends about us. Before we start the show, I'd like to turn to Father Ron Walters for our evening prayer.
O God, as we express our creativity in miniature, the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Father, thank you so very much. We really appreciate your contributions to our show, both with the evening prayer as well as your modeling. Thank you. We have a website. If you haven't been there and subscribe, I encourage you to do so. It's www.newtracksmodeling.com. You'll get an email each week telling you what the login link for Zoom is for our show. You can watch our shows either live on Zoom or live on YouTube. If you watch it on YouTube, our channel is New Tracks Modeling. If you subscribe to our channel, then you'll get notices about all of our future shows on YouTube. You'll also be able to find out about all of the build-alongs that we do, who the manufacturers are, when they start, the discounts the manufacturers are offering for the kit that's going to be built, and the modeler who's going to build the kit on our show. And it's got a lot of other information that I think you'll find interesting about what we've done in the past and what our plans are for the future, including our scholarship program, which I'm pleased to announce is very successful for our first year. I couldn't be more pleased about what's happened and the direction that it's going. And I think the second year is going to be a tremendous victory for us. But I'll talk about that more in a future show. The MyBuilds, we have one tonight. And the next one we have is August the 23rd. Again, if you have a model that you'd like to enter it to show us what you're building, the email for Chris Course is in the chat, I believe. And just send him the email with the photos that you'd like to include, and he'll take it from there to make sure that you're included in the next one. Again, the date of it is August the 23rd. The one for July, as I said, is later this evening. Our modeling lifestyle features Dennis Brennan, and that airs tomorrow night. It's live on only on our YouTube channel. We don't show it live on Zoom. And again, our YouTube channel is New Tracks Modeling. I have a short video I'd like to run about this.
Join the modeling lifestyle at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on June 20th, where we will feature the modeling lifestyle of Dennis Brennan. Dennis operates Brennan's Model Railroading products, and he is a professional scenery builder and modeler. He is also a commercial photographer, and his model photos have been published many times in classic toy trains, including numerous covers. Join Jim Kello, Dennis, and his friends as they discuss how modeling has been a major part of Dennis' life.
And as I say, I really think you'll enjoy it. If you have time to see it live, fantastic. If you don't, you can always watch a video of the discussion later on, but it's scheduled for tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, now I'd like to start the show. And the first person I want to introduce is Bob Davidson to talk about his dollar store treasures. Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. We'll share the screen and we'll get going. So welcome to Dollar Store Treasures, which I will show you a couple products each week that I've found, excuse me, at the local dollar store. Again, once again, tonight, everything has come from the Dollar Tree store or the $1.25 tree store, if you want to be specific. And tonight we're in the kitchen aisle. I'm going to show a couple things and then actually show why I got these. So down the kitchen aisle, the first thing I found was this mesh strainer, which has a fairly coarse basket on it. But then hanging right next to it was this splatter screen. So this is you put it over a fry pan to prevent grease from splattering. And it has a very fine mesh in it, much finer than like window screen. So I thought, for those of you who don't know, I own a company that manufactures exhibits, and we probably generate 50 to 100 pounds of sawdust a month. And while sawdust that comes off a saw or a planer is too coarse to use, we have a routing machine, and a lot of the material we use is MDF. And the sawdust that comes off the router is quite fine. And I've often wondered how I could possibly make use of this, because frankly, it goes in the dumpster. So I found those two screens. This was the first sift that I did through the big screen, and you can see the coarse sawdust is coming out because we do cut some plywood, and we also cut some plastics. That's what the black things are. Those aren't bugs. So I sifted through a few loads of that, and this is what that first sift looked like. And then I utilized the splatter guard, and I just used a spatula, or, a putty knife, and just worked it back and forth across this very fine mesh screen. And what I wound up with was an incredibly fine sawdust. So frankly, I've just started. I just did a test today, just using some white glue to stick it down, and didn't overspray it or anything. And this is how it kind of came out. This is much enlarged, obviously, but I think it's something that I'm intrigued about for ground cover, or for, I'm actually going to have like a small construction site on my layout, and I'm thinking I could use this for dirt. And it's incredibly light, and I don't have to get into baking dirt in the oven or anything like that. So again, that's tonight's two products. The splatter screen, which is and I would think there'd be other things you could use to sift out if you're using any plasters or anything like that, and you want to just make sure you don't have anything in it, or the mesh strainer. So that's tonight's episode. Just again, we'll be back next week with some more exciting finds from the dollar store.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. I've never seen it that fine before.
Yeah. Really quite fascinating.
Absolutely. I wonder if you couldn't use it on trees too.
I don't know what you couldn't use it for. You could, I'm looking at one of the things I want to play with, and I'll report back as I keep working with this with different adhesives, is I have a very large area that's going to be a maintenance yard. And I'm wondering if I can use this to kind of recreate kind of a gravelly kind of dirt, just gravel dirt stuff without going through the expense and the weight of having natural stone on it. So I'll
maybe even sand around a riverbed.
Yeah, that's what I want to play with. But the other thing is that certainly if you have a fabrication shop, a cabinet shop, or an exhibit shop such as my business, pay them a visit. Go over there We have several modelers that come by to pick through our scrap bin. We have lots of, styrene and expanded polystyrene and plywoods and things like that. And frankly, we're throwing them out. So
Yeah.
do look around your neighborhood, and maybe you'll find a resource that you can have. And as Jim loves to say, it's free, and it doesn't get better than that.
Absolutely. That's where I used to get my sawdust, by the
Yeah.
black bag full. And they were glad for me to come and get rid of it because they didn't have to throw it away.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Bob.
You're welcome.
Well, now I want to come back to Mr. Steve Sherrill. We're starting a new series tonight. What do you want to talk about? Steve kind of broached the subject last week, and tonight, this is our first segment. So Steve, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Well, tonight we are starting a new segment, and it's just going to be about anything you want to talk about. Now, I've kind of got some ideas, and I will probably come up with a subject that we will start, and maybe we'll talk about it. Like tonight's subject is going to be modeling in the off months. Many years ago, and I'm going to go back in my early days of modeling, and before air conditioning, we didn't model except in the wintertime or when it was cool in our locations. Now, of course, we have air conditioning, so that problem is taken care of. But many of us in the summer months, our inspiration goes down somewhat, because we don't have, we have other things that we're doing. We have activities with the family. We're on vacations. There's no train shows. This type of thing. We also may have other hobbies that we do, such as golf or antique autos when they have shows and this type of thing. So I don't have a problem with modeling, anytime that I'm inspired, because I just go out back in my building and work out back there. And the air conditioner goes, and I'm usually inspired every day. I try to run a train every day, even if it's only moving it a few feet, to keep the interest. Sometimes that interest wanes a little bit as other activities become more important. So one of the things I want to share with you today is it's kind of an off the wall and not really about model railroading as such, but it is concerning something that here we probably use every single day. And I don't know if the group is aware of these stamps that are out now concerning railroad stations. There's a pane of stamps, and I'm sorry I'm not getting this very clear. It's a pane of stamps with different railroad stations around the country. And they're forever stamps, so if you go and you buy a pane of 20, they'll be good forever, and regardless of the rate of the stamps. So one of the things that, let me get this information up. On there is the Tamagua station in Pennsylvania, the Point of Rock station, which is one of the most famous stations in railroading, the main station in Richmond, the Santa Fe station in San Bernardino, and the Union Terminal in Cincinnati. So many times we are inspired by prototype photos to recreate a model. This is one of the things that I think are kind of nice to have, if nothing for a collection, but to look at and compare our models if we want. And it comes in a nice pane, and it's forever stamped. It says one trip. Okay. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. I am an old postal employee, retired in 1992. was probably one of the few best days of my life, was getting out of there. But every once in a while, they do come up with something that I refer to. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now, I don't know what projects you have as far as the summertime goes. My own is I'm working on an engine, and I haven't, it's going to be made out of a Nomi. So this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be turning this, what you see right, let me get this back. My camera's getting away from me. It's got its own mind. I'm going to turn this into something that looks like this. So it's going to look like this when I'm finished, and it will be running. And I'm going to use one of Dylan Lambert's drive units, which I've already taken everything apart here. Removed all that, which is not the scale of anything. It's my favorite tool, of course, which is my 9-inch bandsaw. I love that thing. And what I have done now is I have created a flat surface with weights, and his drive unit will power that. And so I'll have that done in a month or so when I just, when I want to continue doing it. So that's what I'm up to. And that's the kind of thing that I want to talk about. And if anybody else has something they want to talk about, I think now is a good time to share what their, what their ideas are, or just whatever they want to talk about. So, and I know Bob Gelmacher's on here, and he's a 3D man, a very good man with a 3D process. And Bob, if you want to just talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing with it, it might be very interesting to the group.
Hey,
Bob,
Steve,
still here? Yeah.
I noticed the Clever Models paper building as a background.
Yeah.
Are you into a lot of paper? Needless to say, I'm a avid paper modeler.
I am to a certain extent. Of course, when the paper stuff came out first, it was always in small scale, and you had to blow it up, had to put it on. And so I used to take it down to Staples, and I would make the guys blow it up until I thought it was the right size. I've got some other stuff that I've used for backdrop on my layout, which, I can show. I don't know if anybody was really interested, but I can. I have to get up and move around a little bit. So if you guys just hang on a minute. This is going to be all paper. I don't see on this. All I see is you, Jim. Jim, all I see is.
I see your face. That's what I'm seeing.
You see me?
If you click the camera back, we see the other side. So just hold it up and we'll see. Click it back, click it back to the other camera. And then you should see a little picture of yourself there or something, a little picture of your layout. Click on that. It should make it bigger.
Where'd I go?
There you go. That's the layout.
Okay. So this is the backdrop buildings that I've blown up. And the guy who made this, I think he's still in business, I'm not sure. But he made it an HO only, so I contacted him about getting permission to blow it up to O scale. And he said, oh, it won't work. They won't look good. And so I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway, So this is just something that fills in a blank wall rather than having, nothing there.
Yeah,
I went ahead and put a fire escape on that one and just some exhaust. And so that works for me, but that's about all the paper buildings that I've got. So this is
When
one of
you-
my
when you-
yards of Weston.
when you say, when
I
you,
was
when you,
wondering if you did any of the paper railroad cars.
I don't have any paper railroad cars, no. I have not gotten into those. But what I did was, some of the things I did with this paper is, here I have a lady hanging out the window and she's looking down the tracks. And I used to operate the railroad with Mary and Bill Miller. And they were the first man and wife master model railroaders. And so she was a great modeler. And so I said, I've got her hanging out the window looking at the trains. So, unfortunately, Bill's passed away and she's kind of lost interest. So,
Too bad.
but that happens sometimes. And I don't know what's going to happen to the layout.
Cleaver, I don't know whether they still do or not, but they used to have a little cassette that you could buy that had a lot of little small engines on there. And it was really something. You could build them in cardstock and, put them on your layout and put them in a yard away from the edge and for background. And they were awfully realistic, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I also have, this background is one of Joey Ricard's backgrounds. And my sawmill actually was a covered bridge that I turned into a sawmill so that since it didn't have to look, into it. And so that's only about 14 inches wide, that whole thing there. But I was going to put that entire thing up on my backdrop for my layout, but it looked so real. I got kind of claustrophobic. I thought I'd be caught up in the woods, and that's a real strange feeling for me anyway. But that was just one of the things I did. But the paper buildings are really, a lot of guys have done really nice work in those paper buildings. I have just, I'm through building buildings right now. I have been for like 15 years, unfortunately. My layout is basically probably finished unless I change the whole thing again. But, I don't think I'm going to be doing that. Not now that I'm into the micro layouts, it's no longer possible for me to do that kind of stuff. My interest is somewhere else, but I do run the big railroad all the time.
Steve, let me ask you a question. Since you're able to go out and work on your railroad anytime you want to every day.
Yeah.
You ever just, get tired of it and just want to
Yes.
take a break and so forth? And what do you do to get back to it then?
Well, I'm an avid golfer, and not a bad golfer either, by the way. And so that comes into conflict with my railroading. But I do have a lot of friends who are into model railroading. And so we stay in touch. So the fact that we talk about other things besides railroading, and the subjects will always come back to model railroading. So, it's still in my mind. It's not like I've gone away and I have to come back in September when the train meets come up. But we just had to get together, a week or so ago. We went to a short line railroad and got a tour of the shops. And I believe, Jim, I sent you a picture of the steam engine there. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that something that ran up there is going to be in the caboose or not tonight. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it was very interesting. to go to those type of activities with friends, and just share good times, and not necessarily about model railroading, but it could be prototype, or, you know, just getting together and talking.
Yep. Yep. I understand.
So we, and I'm lucky to have a close proximity to 3 or 4 excellent modelers, you know, so that makes it nice too, that if I have a problem, I can give them a call and say, hey, you know, why doesn't this work? Or they'll call me up and say, hey, you know, I'm having trouble with my battery power. Can you come over? And, you know, and we go over everything, and we solve a problem. They operate, you know, I'm not a big operator anymore. I used to operate my railroad, but I just run it and have fun with it myself. It's always open to anybody that wants to contact me and come over. I mean, I'm here almost every day, except Tuesday and Thursday. But yeah, you know, this is such a great hobby, and I've had lots and lots of fun with this hobby, and I love to share it with people. I don't think I'm a real craftsman. I don't scratch build hardly anything. I'm a kit basher. I get more thrill out of that than anything else, because that's just a modification to what I think it should be. And, you know, I'm hoping that this series that we're going to do will get a lot more people involved and sharing, you know, what they're doing. And so, you know, anybody who would certainly like to talk about something tonight, or has a subject that they want to come up with, you know, we can certainly talk about it during this time segment. This is what it's going to be, you know.
And actually, what we're planning to do, guys, is we're going to do this once a week for a while.
Yes.
And see what you guys want to really talk about. What are your issues out there? What are they? You know, we've had, you know, people build this and build that on the show and so forth. But what we're trying to do is open it up and accommodate what you want to talk about, what you want to hear about.
Right.
And to do that, we need your input. I mean, you know, Steve's got some ideas, I've got some ideas, but really this is your segment. Let's talk about things.
You know, I don't think you have to show anything. You can just talk.
Yep.
You know, share, tell us what you think. You know, what are you doing now? You know, are you stumped? You have a problem. You want to put it out here. Let us hear it. Let's see, maybe we can solve it. I don't know. This is what it's going to be about. We're going to talk about everything to do with model railroading. And I think it's going to be very interesting. And, you know, I know every time I go by the dollar store, I have to steer the car away from going inside, because I don't want to take anything away from Bob Davidson. But, you know, I used to do the same thing when I was riding down the road. I would see wild plants, and I would say, hey, that'd make a nice tree. And I'd pull over and pull plants. And when I was in the landscape business after I retired, I used to plant autumn joy sedum in customers' yards, charge them to plant them, and then cut them and charge them again, and then use them on the railroad. So, you know, I had a little bit of a racket there, but it all worked out, and it's fun. But you know, I just think that this is just such a great hobby that anything else just falls a little bit short in my world.
Well, I agree. Well, listen, this kicks it off tonight, Steve, and I can't thank you enough for doing this. And really, guys, this is your segment. We'll be back.
I got one more thing.
All right.
Hold on. I got to get ready, because I showed Jim this, but this is just so you guys know that you guys know. Where is it? Oh. I was not kidding when I said I was going to put. Okay, and Of course, track power is going to give you some weird stuff. So anyway, this is supposed to go back and forth, but it doesn't. Well, Will, let me get this thing going now. You know, I wonder if John Allen had this type of problem. I always wonder that if the math is.
There we go.
Oh, God.
You guys, trolley guys, satisfied now?
Yeah, we're satisfied, except you don't have overhead wire.
Well, this is when it's underground. I'm a DC boy, so they changed to underground at 7th and W Street in Washington. So I'm on the underground. That's where they changed it over.
I got you.
All right.
I appreciate it so much, Steve. We'll see you next week. And guys, start thinking about what you'd like to talk about, because this is your segment.
That's right. And some of you guys, I might have to call on you because I know who you are.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Talk to you later. Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
All right. Now I want to turn to Tom Farrell, who is scratch building his layout. And Tom, I tell you, the scene that you've created is really outstanding. I mean, that is something that I really admire, the way that you've modeled it and scratch built it. So welcome.
Well, thank you for having me again, and thank you for putting up with me. Why? Okay, so this evening I'm going to continue my shanty town. Let me get this rolling here. Everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
Everybody can hear me.
Yep.
Okay, I've made progress. I said last week that I would redirect the river and that I would build a dam, a concrete dam, and that's what I'm going to show you this evening. This is an overview of the, I'll show you how I did this, but these are the three structures that I featured the past several weeks, past month. And these are additional structures from my old layout. This is the single kit in the group. The rest of them are all scratch built. These were building flats. I'm going to actually have to turn them into structures. That'll be a show too. I'll show you how I turn these building flats into real structures, standalone structures. They're designed to go against the backdrop, but I'm moving them forward. So anyway, first thing I'm going to show you is scratch building a concrete dam for the Salt River. As you may recall, the one of the feature structures on my old layout was this scratch built covered bridge, and behind it on the old layout I had one of these special mirrors that the river bent to the left, and I put the mirror to the left, and when you look down the river you saw the river go on forever. I don't have the luxury of the depth to do that this time. This is only about 2 feet 24 inches in total depth. I was dealing with nearly 4 feet on the last installation of this bridge. So I wanted to come up with another way to trick the eye into seeing that the scenery continued on, and I thought a dam would be best. So the first thing I did is I wanted to just test fit where I'm going to put it in. So I pulled out the bridge. I mean, nothing's installed yet, and the sculptamold stops right here in anticipation of putting in this concrete bridge. So I took this basswood and I cut it to length. It's 2 inches high. Well, I should take a step back. The first thing I did is a Google search on concrete dams, and I came up with one that has a copyright picture. I would have posted it. But I'm basically duplicating a prototype dam, and this is the start of it here. These are the actual components up top here. This is that 2-inch by approximately 18-inch long piece of basswood, and these are the actual basswood members. I doubled them up here. Make that prototypical about a foot wide. And I super glued everything together and sanded everything so it's flush, you know, the two pieces here. Not too many people probably make dams. The first one for me. Flipping the dam around, you know, I wanted some depth to the dam, so I put on these tabs, and then I laid a piece of basswood across the top, super glued it in place, and then for the spillway, I created, I added these adder pieces here. So if you envision this piece going across here, then I put these tabs on up top, and then I put what looks like a walkway, but it's really the spillway. Then I test fit it. So this portion here will be scenery, and this portion here will be scenery, and the actual dam will be limited to this. I've considered putting wing walls on here. I'm still not sure whether I'm going to do that or not, or just have scenery. I am going to have, I've debated back and forth to have it a dry dam or have actually simulated water cresting over the spillway. I think I'm going to go that route just for, just because I've seen it so many times in model railroads. I want to do it myself. So that's my current scheme. After I test fitted here, I took it out to the garage and blasted it with a rattle can of gray primer. You know, paint always shows your sins. So I went back and sanded and filled this. This is it dry. Concrete's not actually gray. It's actually this color and this off gray. My favorite concrete color is Floatwool concrete. But since Floatwool long ago quit making product, and a couple years ago I ran out of my concrete color, and one fellow that I know that has the world's largest collection for sale doesn't have any either. So I custom mixed my own concrete color with acrylic craft paint. That's pretty much dead on the old Floatwool concrete color. Now these are all the base colors. So that's the base primer, sealed all the wood up. And then I went back and I hand painted this with this custom mixed concrete color. Then I weathered the living crap out of it with greens and grays and mosses. And I am going to probably tone it down to look more like this here to the left. The bridge, the prototypical bridge, was just covered with moss and green and even some really heavy blacks on it. So this is as far as I've taken it so far. But this is, I'm pretty pleased with how it's come out so far. I mean, it's actually a prototypical dam. It's exactly what it looks like. Then I said last week that I would redirect the Salt Creek River, because as you may recall, the three structures that I scratch built over the past month, this looks like a traffic jam here. And my wife said, geez, you know, you're really interfering with the look of that covered bridge you spent so much time on. So even if these structures are tucked into the hillside, they're still obstructing the view of the bridge. It's just like I said, it looks like a traffic jam. So I want a nice clear view of this model. It was the highlight of my old layout and one of the centerpiece structures. So I decided to redirect the river, because right now it basically runs north and south, and I'm going to make it go a little east. So this is immediately to the right of the river, and these are those three structures. And I thought this would be the nice order for the structures, and I'd begin cutting into my foam. So the first thing I did is with a permanent magic marker, I approximated the locations of those structures and where I would start making my cuts. This track isn't in yet, and the bridge isn't in yet. This is just for looking at where things might go. So I took this little hand saw and I began cutting my foam. And I took a wood grasp and I cut back this foam and sloped it here. So you can see the whole ensemble. This is the river was basically north-south before. Now I'm going to make it curve to the right. I test fit those structures, and they're on, they're on dowel rods, posts. So I'm with just a drill. Holding in my hand, I put these penetrations in the foam. So they align, as you'll see, these structures align with this, with these penetrations I made, these holes. Then I put in a piece of plywood, which is matching this plywood. It's not totally in here yet in this photo. I glued everything down with wood glue, and I put in I have a pneumatic stapler. I just stapled this plywood in. So this is how it's coming along. Then I test fit the structures, make sure I was comfortable with where things were going. Now to make it fully go to, before I went north and south, I had to add a corner piece in here. So I took some foam. I literally just set the foam in there. I didn't glue it or anything. I just cut a triangular piece of foam and I sloped it to this old hillside here. The existing, I drew in what I wanted. Put in this piece of foam, put in some scrap foam here, mix some Sculptamold up, and just feathered this into the existing hillside and put in all this new Sculptamold. So effectively making this river turn to the right. And then this is the Sculptamold in place. I envision this is a cut into rock here. Same here, a cut into, it'll be a rock face. This is just a slope. So I wanted variation. I just didn't want it just one long rock wall. I wanted a little variation in this. These are the structures sitting in place. You can see this fits into the cut. So it's as if they cut into the river to make this one work. This one, they use the existing contour of the river to build this structure in place. And this one, you can't see it here, but the theory is that they cut into the side to put this one in place. This is that fourth structure that I keep alluding to, that it's part of they'll all be bait shops. So this is coming along pretty nicely. There's the bridge temporarily in place. I just wanted to see how things look. And I began doing the scenery. It's not everything's wet, so it's a little glossy, but this was the rock face cut into the hillside. This is the swampy, it's not quite underwater, it's not quite dry area underneath the structure. This is just standard, what they used to call zip texturing, I guess. There's the cut of that first structure in there. It's a close-up of how it fits. Remember, I'm going to pour cast resin for this river once I'm comfortable with everything and the structures are glued in place and the structures are finished. Then I'll cast Envirotex or Woodland Scenics two-part epoxy. I have both. I'm not sure which or both I'm going to use. Here is what I envision the town to look like. So the idea is these structures are from the old layout. As I said in the very beginning of the presentation, these were backdrop buildings. I'm going to finish them off and add a little depth to them. This is that Wanda's House of Ill Repute. This is a kit. I think I've built 3 kits in my life. This is one of them. These are all scratch built. They're all different. This has wood shakes. This has siding. This has brick. These have 3 different roof lines, 4 different roof, everything. There's a lot of variation here. And then there's a visual trick here. We start with a low building. We'll go higher, 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 and flat. So this draws your eye magically to the right. Same is true here. Just little visual tricks when doing composition. That's it. Any questions on this? Any comments? You guys like how it's coming along?
Where is, combination, where is the dam going to be? Is it this side of the bridge?
It is behind the bridge. You won't actually,
Behind,
yeah, you, oh, sorry. First day with the new hands. Hold on a second. The dam will barely be visible if you're on the left of this, the opposite view of this. If you go to the left, you can actually, you'll be actually, if you stand, I don't have a good photo of that. If you're looking at it this way, you're standing to the left of these structures and to the left of the bridge, you can see the dam. I'll take a picture next time. When I put it next show, I will have the dam in place. I have the sculptor mold in place. All these structures will be glued in place. I don't know that I'll be actually casting next show, but if I get really ambitious, I'll have the water in. But I'll take a photo that shows you the dam from the angle that you can see it.
great, great. I love the scene. I really do. I couldn't visualize in my mind where the dam was going to be.
It's going to be right behind here. The problem is you can barely see its foot right there. See the dam right there? See the foot of the dam? You can barely.
Yep,
You can
barely. Yep,
barely see it. But the point is, I couldn't put nothing back there. So
yeah,
I had to put something. And if you want to look at it, if you're visiting the layout, you can by going to the left of the bridge and just looking.
gotcha.
Anyway, the idea is I'll put a road in here, some fence to separate these structures from the tracks. And there'll be all kinds of walkways and complicated walkways to get to these structures. I'm envisioning some sort of hokey walkways going around, and I'll have a couple boats in here eventually. So it's going to keep me occupied for another couple of months, easy.
Gotcha.
And
Well,
then
I look forward to seeing I look forward next week to seeing where you're going to put that.
thank you again for having me, and hope you guys enjoy this. Yep.
Good, very much. Fantastic model. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, now we're going to go back and have Martin Brechbiel come on for a few minutes. Martin told me that there's one photo that he did not show when he was doing the body detail that he'd like to show us. And so I suggested, well, why don't you do it tonight while it's still fresh in everybody's mind about the AB brake system. So Martin, welcome and thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I think it's going to be closer to 11 photos, but
Oh, okay.
It's called inflation. It happens. So let's see here. Yeah, this is part 2.5 since I wasn't planning on making a part 3, so we got a part 2.5. The basic AB brake system, which is not going to have just the AB brake system. We're going to wander around a little bit, but that's sort of where we were. It's the basic diagram. It's a rehash of that. just to keep that fresh in your head. But you know, that's the basic diagram. And there's all kinds of variations on the theme. And well, I want to point out one thing here about all these. Every one of these, the levers and rods and clevises and such, all the connections are above the center sill.
Yep.
You know, the train line's going through the center sill, but everything else is above the center sill. That actually is fairly easy. Everything's right on top where you can get to it. It may be stacked up in layers, but it's all on top of the center sill. That's called foreshadowing. Okay, this is our victim from last week. There's the finished version of it. It's got a coat of paint on it. It's actually got decals and paint and all kinds of stuff on it. The car is done, actually. The white stuff is just dust. It accumulates fast in my shop if you don't watch what you're doing. But yeah, so you can see everything's above or on, right on the center sill. Not all cars work that way. So, you know, it's straightforward when it's above. What about when the linkages are running through the center sill? All the, you know, you've got all your connections are buried in it. The solid center sill, that's a lot of fun, but it's well, hollow one, it's a lot more entertaining. So I had this resin kit. This is one of Ted Schnepp's O-scale kit cars. It was lingering on the box in the hallway on the shelf of doom, for lack of a better phrase. And this one, you look at the instructions, it actually has these parts aren't sitting up here. They're inside through holes cut in this center sill. So before you put the car together, this is really the best time to do this, because once you have the car side, it is a gondola, but once the side, it's a fish belly side, it's kind of hard to drill holes in here. The side of the car is in the way. So there's a time and a place for doing this. The time and the place is now, before you get the car fully assembled. And this is where it gets a little tricky. What do you do first here? Well, in my case, what I do first is I put that brake cylinder where I think it's going to belong, and make all the rest of the measurements off the height of that brake cylinder. Where this comes out of the brake cylinder defines where this lever has to go through this center sill, where this hole has to be drilled to connect to the brake line, which then drives where this hole is for the end of this lever to sit, and a hole here for the lever to rock back and forth through. Lots of fun. So this is where you get out of, I actually using a small battery powered hand drill and just drilling holes through it. I mark it, drill holes through it, carve it down a little bit with a scalpel blade, test fit, slide this in here. So there's a little hole at the bottom underneath this cylinder casting. It drops in, but as you drop it in, you're sliding this pre-assembled lever attached to this clevis through the hole. So there's 3 or 4, it took about 5 tries before I got close to where I was happy with it. Glue it all in place. Then you've got a hole drilled over here for the linkage to the brake. Here's a hole drilled linkage to the brake wheel. Then you have the fun of putting this lever in. It doesn't come all the way through. It sits right in the resin on this side, but you have to put this rod in here with this connection on it and slide this through, catch the clevis. And once you get it where you want it, you don't hesitate and put a drop of CA on it right away, because the odds are if you let go of it, it's going to fall out. So capture it when you can and keep going. Another hole drilled here. So there's lots of holes drilled. You know, little cavities cut out, and of course, we have 2 more pieces of the brake system to put in, which make it even more fun. So you add the triple valve and the air reservoir. Okay, so they have to get mounted. Another little bit of styrene here, some styrene over here to hold it where it belongs. You have to think about how high this is going to go. Remember, there's 4 holes here. One hole, This one side hole goes all the way over to the brake cylinder. That's probably the easiest one. But the real problem is you've got to connect your air cylinder through two holes, into the bottom two holes of the triple valve. So I actually set this up, pre-assembled the air reservoir with the brass wires, those phosphor bronze wires, actually 20,000s, with the wires glued into it already, slide those through and capture it with the triple valve on the other side. So you're sliding this through, getting these two wires through the hole, getting them into the two holes in the triple valve, and dropping the triple valve into place and gluing it in place. And you only have two hands, which makes it a little exciting, but I can assure you it's doable. I've done it several times. I guarantee you it may induce colorful language and strong drink, but rest assured, I know you can do it. It does take a few bend, twist, test fit, bend, repeat until you get it right. That's, you're pre-drilling the castings. Be careful pre-drilling castings. It's white metal in this case. Take it easy, use the right size drill, hold it carefully, do not drill your finger. I will tell you firsthand, it hurts when you run a 28 thousandths hole into your finger. You will, I guarantee, colorful language. And if you're pain resistant, you don't drop the casting when you do it. It's very important, because if you drop the casting, you probably never find it again. They have a way of just flying through the air and being elusive. Okay, so it's a little easier when you get to build up the underbody framing. This is a planes kit, which I got, and it was missing the underbody parts. So you just make some. It's just styrene. Look at the diagram, you know where they go. You make your own center sill, run some brass wire through it. For your train line, that makes it fairly straightforward, since you're going to have to drill holes through the sills, the bolster, through the sills at an angle, and then you can just drill holes these and thread them through the wire as you assemble it. So it's a lot easier, I think it's a lot easier at least, to put all these parts in place as you build, as opposed to trying to retrofit it after it's all assembled. I don't have drills that are work at right angles very well. Okay, this is not the AB system, it's the old split cave system. Those are actually my resin castings. I made my own levers, but again, this one rides across the top, but everything's a little more complicated because you have to connect these dots together, get all these things in place. It works out okay. And it works very much like the same old K-brake. But this is one of those situations where you can't use the complete K-brake because there's not enough room here. The distance between here doesn't work. But this is all styrene, so you can just glue it together with some methylene chloride or Tenax or whatever your plastic cement is of choice, solvent cement. Again, making this connection, though, is a little tricky because this comes out, comes up, goes across, goes under the brake rod, comes across, makes a right angle turn, goes in the back of the cylinder. Again, you fabricate this, bend, test, bend, test, bend, test, bend, test, drop it on the floor, lose it, start over, bend, test, bend, test. Second time you do it, you don't drop it on the floor and you get one that fits. Get it into the two holes, grab the bottle of CA, put a drop on each end, take a deep breath, you got it. And that's where we're going to stop. There you go, Jim.
Martin, I really appreciate this because, again, this is not rocket science. It's delicate work. It's time-consuming work. It can be frustrating, but it's all doable.
Yeah, well, and having a small hemostat for gripping the wire.
Yep.
So it doesn't go flying into space too often, and so you can actually bend it around the corners a little bit, give it a little tension on it, fit it into the holes that it goes into, hold it there, and then grab your bottle of CA and release and glue all at the same time. Makes it a lot easier. You know,
Yeah.
so letting go of it prematurely is ill-advised. That's the fast way to lose that piece of wire that you spent a half an hour forming.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this.
No problem.
Well, now I want to introduce you to Dennis Brennan. You met him a little bit last week, and tonight he's going to talk about photography. And starting in a couple of weeks, I think you're going to really enjoy this part. Because Dennis is connected to certain magazines and has written for them and photographed for them and done railroad photos and so forth for many years, and has a tremendous reputation in the hobby for his photography. Dennis is going to offer you the opportunity to take some photos, send them to him, and on the show, starting in about 3 weeks, Dennis will start going through the photos and helping you modify the photos to a point where any magazine would be proud to accept them as far as publishing the article that you're trying to get published. And I can tell you that in my past, the rejection of articles, in many, many cases, if not most of the cases that I know of, was because of the quality of the photography. The writing is easy to deal with. I mean, that's not the problem. The problem is the photography. And for Dennis to offer his help and advice to you, I think is really going to be an interesting segment on our future shows. And tonight he's going to talk about photography frankly, as an art form for us and for model railroading. And Dennis, welcome. I really appreciate this.
Hey, glad to be here, Jim, and I'm glad to get into this. I hope when we're done with what I'm going to present to you tonight and then in the future that I can help everybody become a better photographer. Now, I'm coming from this as an artist photographer. I did commercial photography for many years, and I don't really see a difference between commercial photography and the art in photography. Somebody asked me that one time, well, that's just your commercial work. Where is your art? Well, I put art into everything that I do. And hopefully I can share tonight with you the thought and the process and the difference between a photograph and something that is art. So with that in mind, then let's begin. And if anybody has anything to say or they have a question while I'm doing this, just let me know. Just break in, let me know, and I'll be glad to answer it. So with that going, let's get started. And I'm going to do this. And all right, so everybody see that one? So we're going to talk about the art behind the science, because we all know that photography is a craft. You have to have a certain amount of knowledge before you can do a photo. So let's just go to, all right, there we go. This is a shot that I did as a cover for Classic Toy Trains. Now I want you to all look at this photograph, and I want you to think about what this photograph is communicating. Just look at it. Does anybody have any idea? Can anybody give me some input? Tell me what you see.
No.
Nice, cool day.
Crisp day.
How do you know that? How do
No
you know?
clouds in the sky and the snow. It's crisp.
Okay. What time of day?
It looks like this sun, I don't know, morning.
Tree with no leaves on it.
Well, time of day.
You got a shadow behind the tree on that wall, so
the sun is maybe at a low angle, but I'm not, yeah, and behind the truck too. So the sun is to the right at a lower angle.
Well, and then you also have a shadow right here.
Yes.
Okay, so the sun is up here somewhere in the sky. But what else is it about this photograph? It looks real, right? What is it about it that does that?
The
I think
depth,
the way
the
you
depth
done
of
the
field.
snow.
The one thing that I found, and you did it here, is the truck has on the right has a reflection in the glass. And I found when I do outdoor photos, if you can figure out where the sun is and move a model that you can move a little bit or move the whole scene to get that reflection, because that's something your mind doesn't pick up, but actually sees as being very realistic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now I'll let you guys think about. There's a reason that I put the sun where I put it. And the reason being is that I wanted to highlight the corrugations on the building. I also purposely wanted that little reflection in the window that was pointed out. And this photo works because it gives you a sense of time. It gives you a sense of place. It's what do we know by looking at this? This is an industrial area. That could be an industrial area in any city. We know that it's a crisp day. Why? Look at the snow on the ground. Now, a lot of modelers don't do snow like that. And that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Every time I see a snow scene, it's usually like, it looks like there was a blizzard and everything is covered. Well, if you cover everything, then you don't have any detail. We can still see that there's ballast on fill along the fill here. We can see that snow that just kind of hits the roofs a little bit. And the really cool one is this here. That's the kind of snow where the wind came in and just kind of moved it around, and now it's kind of icy. Now, I have to admit, that was a happy accident. I would love to say that I put that there with, very carefully sprinkling snow, but I put it there. But the way it happened was, like I said, a happy accident. And that's because I use baking powder, baking soda, and typically when you do that, you sprinkle it through a strainer. Well, usually you put a piece of paper under that strainer when you first pour the stuff in so that it doesn't all come right down and go through there. Well, I didn't put in the piece of paper. I put the strainer over the street and I sprinkled the stuff in, and I got a big pile of snow right there. And I thought, oh man, I don't want to vacuum that up, because I had carefully done some nice snow over here with my hands sprinkling stuff. So I thought, I wonder if I could just kind of blow it around a little bit. So I just went, and there you go. So the lesson here is, if something isn't quite right, don't just give up and chuck it all. Come up with a solution. That solution worked. So, all right. Oops, we're going the wrong way. Here we go. All right, here's another shot. Now, what about this shot? What time of day is this? What kind of weather is it?
Looks like it's fairly heavy overcast, and there's a little shadow from the guy by the switch stand.
Yes.
Or the switch stand.
Yep. So there's a whole different feeling. There's a completely different feeling with this shot. So again, we're talking about lighting. In both of those shots, it's lighting that creates the feeling of atmosphere. That's what it creates. Now, where do you separate? I mean, there's also the modeling. Without the modeling, the best photograph in the world can't make it sing. So you have that too. And the other thing is the camera position. Now, in both of these shots, these are very realistic camera angles. They put you right in the scene. I could be standing right on that rock with my camera and taking that picture. All right. Then we'll go to, and now here we have another one. Now that's the same area as the previous slide. But what's the difference now? What time of day is it now? Anybody?
Late afternoon.
That's not what the way I imagined it. I imagined it as early morning.
Yeah, because of the mist.
Well, the fog, we're coming across a bridge. Okay, the clue here is we're coming across a lift bridge, a bascule bridge. We've got a girder bridge over here that's connected to it. So there's this mist that comes off. There's a harbor. And we have these background buildings here that are kind of silhouetted because the sun is coming up over here. And so we've got some, we've got some early morning light, and we've got some, and again, this is a cold, I see it as a cold kind of early morning, dreary sort of. Picture the photographer who climbed up on the rocks and waited for that engine to come by. That's what that's all about. The photographer was waiting to get that shot, and he framed it just perfectly. Now here's again, here, okay, and now that was the before. And this is the other view of it. Now here's a scene. Okay, now this scene is, we got a nice, bright, sunny day. And we have the sun coming in from the upper right again. That seems to be one of my favorite angles. Don't ask me why. I just happen to like that. And we see a lot of, it looks like there's a lot of detail in here, but really there's only a few details that really make it work. Okay, now, again, I'm talking about the models themselves, but it's also the lighting that brings this all to life as well. Now, what little details are here that make it pop? Well, there's a little sewer grate right there. Very minor. What's this along the curb? That's a little, what I call street schmutz. The kind of gritty, gravelly stuff that gathers along, curbs and just along railroad crossings. And this shot was actually inspired, and I can't show it to you because it's copyrighted, but it was inspired by a shot that I saw in a book called New York Harbor Railroads. And it had a shadow going across the street like this. It had a little tank engine going across like that. And although this doesn't duplicate that shot, the feeling is there exactly. Same scene, different time, different place, slightly different view. What time of day is it now?
Night.
Well, it could be night, but I am a morning person, okay? It could be night, but it's also, I see this as early morning, and that's in my brain because Mama Kate's Cafe is right there, and you see the warmth in that cafe, wouldn't you like to be on your way to work and just stop there for a good old cup of Joe? I would. So, and there's a lot of, now this one, the photography and the lighting has everything to do with the modeling. We've got this very warm white light coming out of this store, which is the cafe. And you can see these nice little highlights going across the street, spilling out into the road. I balanced the lighting for this shot so that I had that. Everything else had to be I went for that. I got that level right, and then I balanced everything else to it so that it wouldn't overpower that light. Upstairs, it's very subtle, but the light gets a little bit dimmer as you go away. That's a wall, that's wallpaper in the background. And that's a wall that you're looking at in the side of this front room. So the light gets a little bit dimmer as you get farther away from where the light source is. And you can see that it's very subtle, but you can see it. And also the other reason to light that up was it lit up the sign over here without having an external light on the sign. Now over here, I used a different color temperature light in the factory building. So that also adds another element. This is one of my all-time favorite shots. This is, I call it Denny Loves Sandy. Sandy is my wife. We've been married for almost 50 years. And I go back to when I was a kid. And if I was going out with Sandy, I would have had that on the bridge. And you can see where I started. I was going to do it over there, but I decided that's too hard to get at. Because really the only way I was able to do this is I had to climb out here and hang on to this railing here so I could write Denny Loves Sandy. Trying to do it over there, you saw I couldn't reach. Now, those are just little tiny details that really bring some life into it, whether you make that connection or not. The idea behind it is that it feels right. If you think about why something is the way it is and try to get behind that, then it'll feel right. If it was over here, I'm not sure that it would have the same effect. Here's another little detail. What's that?
Oh.
Exhaust from the bus going up the back. A little detail here, the sewer grate. And again, street schmutz, perfect. Going up into a kind of a gravel road that goes, where do we don't know. That's probably going to some railroad building. And the beauty of this shot is that it just feels like you came upon it. The photographer just happened to be in the right place at the right time and grabbed that shot. There's no hero in this shot. I mean, when you look at it, I think the eye might go here or to the bus, and then you kind of go to the engine, and then you kind of go up here, and you just wander all around the shot, and then you start to notice all the little details. There's nothing in this photograph that screams at you, look at me, look at me. Nothing. It's very subtle. Even the weathering along here, very subtle. Now, where is the art? Is the art in the modeling? Is the art in the photography? You tell me. Okay, here's a shot that I took of a friend's layout that I did the scenery on. I did all of the scenery. He did the structures. It was just bare bones plywood when I got involved in this. And so I did a scenery and I wanted to do a shot and frame it with this. He has this trolley overpass here, this concrete overpass. So I framed the shot with that. And again, we have a realistic point of view. Think it, you know, everything, you get pulled into the shot. You want to go right down this road, and the blue truck against the engine is kind of a nice contrast. Okay, here's another shot that I took of a layout here in Kansas City area. Now, again, there's a lot of depth to this shot. And we're up high, but it's kind of realistic. The angle is, where are we? Where is the photographer? Well, maybe he was a bridge worker and he's standing right here. Or maybe he's on some building and he's used his lens to frame the shot that way, but it doesn't feel weird or out of place. Again, you have lighting. There's a light coming from right up in this area. And this is an overall shot of the Sandy Harbor. Now, this whole sky is seamless photographic backdrop paper that I lit with various colors of blue light. And I did the same thing in another shot of mine. All these buildings back here are HO. All these buildings on this upper level are HO. And I chose this camera angle. This is about, we're talking about photography, talking about lighting, we're talking about camera angles. This angle, I imagine, was taken from the second story of a building right here. Could have been out on a porch. We don't know. Could have been a factory building. We really don't know. He just took a shot and he was trying to catch the train going across the bridge, and he caught all this other stuff. Again, the lighting on here is very soft and overcast. Okay, this is a shot that I took of a friend's layout in Kansas City. He's a high railer like myself, but again, you would never notice that. Now, what this shot is about is all the exquisite detail that we have. Now, I've talked about depth of field, and if you looked at all the other shots, there was no issue with depth of field at all. Everything was in focus because that's how usually you see stuff in real life when you go out and shoot a scene like that. But in the case where you can't get everything in focus, I will opt to let the background go a little bit softer than the foreground. If you have a soft foreground, right away it says, hey, this is a model. But if you have a foreground that's sharp, it feels real. And again, the lighting I used, I like hard light. I like shadow. The light tickles everything. The light gives you these highlights off of the bands. It highlights the little weeds here from the side. It highlights the wheel here. Now this wheel on this little push cart, this was bigger than O scale. Why? Because he wanted to force the perspective, and I was like all for it. And the building back here is HO. Here's another shot that I took of a layout in Buffalo, New York. This again was for Classic Toy Trains. This was a long lens shot. Now, who says long lenses don't have good depth of field? I just showed you that it does. I can let the background go maybe a little bit soft, but that's okay. We are sharp from here through here. And you get a nice feeling. Again, where are we? We are right down there alongside the track looking at the model. Where's the light? The light is coming in, and you'll look, the light is kind of coming in from this angle. I will use lights to I usually use a light that's 3/4 to the rear. I hardly ever do any kind of, I use side lighting a lot, or 3/4, what I call like backlight, which comes all along here. And then I'll use a bounce card around here to fill in everything else. Or sometimes I'll use a very soft light way back. So the thing is, you don't want to create two shadows. And you don't want to destroy, yeah.
Dennis, I hate to interrupt you here, but we've got to kind of move on tonight because we're out of time.
All right, well, I'm almost done.
Okay.
All right, unless you want me to stop right now. I got one
No,
more.
no, I don't. No, I just, we need to close it down. Go ahead.
All right. Here is a really good way of doing depth of field. Now, this is a DX camera, which is not a full frame camera. It's a Nikon. This is a DX lens, I should say. If you want to see what your depth of field is going to be, focus on the nearest point and note that focus mark. Focus on the farthest point and note where the focus line, where the focus is. In this case, the closest one was 1.5 feet and the farthest one was 5 feet. This is just an example. So if this is exactly where your points are, your nearest and your farthest that you need to have in focus, then everything in between is going to be sharp. These will be sharp. If you put your focus like somewhere in the middle, this will be your near point, this will be your far point. If you move it slightly one way or the other, you're just shifting your depth of field slightly. That's what that's all about. So as long as your near and far are in this window, then you know where you are and you can place your focus somewhere in here. Now, I can explain that more some other time, but it's just a neat little trick. And the last thing I want to show you is I took a wide angle shot, because this is a whole myth that a wide angle lens has more depth of field than a telephoto lens. I took a wide angle shot and we have depth of field from here to here. Now, if I did that with a telephoto lens in the same position, if I couldn't get that shot. But if I take the same shot with a telephoto lens, there you go. That's the same shot. All I did was I moved the camera back and everything is in focus from here to here. And this is your assignment for the next few weeks. I want you to take a shot using the wide angle end of your lens. You can't change that. Go to the wide angle end of your lens, put your camera on a tripod and position that tripod. That's the only thing you can do. You can move the tripod in and out to get the shot. Then once you figure out your shot, take it and now zoom in all the way and move the camera back and get the same shot and show me what you came up with. And if you couldn't do it, tell me why. And if you had a problem, tell me why. And then we'll take it from there. And that's all. So
fascinating, absolutely fascinating, Dennis. And I'm really looking forward. Dennis will be back on the show August the 9th. He's going to be out of town for a couple of weeks. So you've got a couple of weeks to try to do the assignment, to take the wide angle shot and then the zoom shot. And I'm telling you, if you want to improve your photography, this is what this segment is all about. Dennis can help you do that. It'll be painless. All you got to do is want to try, and Dennis will take it from there. So Dennis, thank you so very much for doing this and for the show tonight. And we'll see you next time, August the 9th.
I forgot to put up the last the last slide that had all my stuff on it, but that's okay.
Why don't you put up the last slide with all your stuff on it?
All right.
Because if you have a question about the photography, in the meantime, before August the 9th, there's a email address on this slide that you can contact Dennis, and he'll help you with whatever your question is.
So there it is. You can see that.
So that's how you reach him. And believe me, every time I've ever called Dennis, he's always answered the phone. He's always responded to my emails. So if you've got a question and you want to try to improve your photography, this is how you do it.
All right. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome.
All right, now we're going to turn to the MyBuild part of our show. And before we get involved with the individual models that we're going to be showing tonight, I want to run the short video about the company that Dan and Amy Doherty have called Model Resource Limited that own the two magazines that I write for. And I really appreciate their participation in our show and wanting to include our show in the magazine articles that I write. So thank you so much. And here's a short presentation about their company.
Welcome to the world of scale, O&S railroading. We are your resource for all O&S scale modeling. Both our magazines are advertiser supported and free to read online, download as a PDF, or even print. All advertisers are hot linked to their website, so if you see something you like, just click. Please check out our websites for the current issues. All back issues available free for the O-Scale Resource and the S-Scale Resource magazines. And if you are a manufacturer, distributor, or retail establishment, please contact us through our website for advertising opportunities.
I had a lot of people ask me why those are the two magazines that I write my articles for. And the reason is simple. They have the same philosophy that I have. And that's trying to bring modeling back into the hobby of model railroading. And that's what these shows are all about. That's what my articles are all about. I think I am the only person that writes in those two magazines that includes modelers of all scales, all gauges, and all hobbies. Because I'm firmly convinced that the skills that modelers have, regardless of how they use them in a hobby, are transferable between hobbies. It makes no difference to me if you're an N scaler, HO scaler, S scaler, G scaler, live steamer, makes no difference to me. As long as you have skills that I believe other people can benefit from, I want to introduce you to the world, best I know how. That's what my article's about. That's what we try to make the segments on the shows about. So with that said, Phil, if you can get us started here, we'll go to the MyBuild tonight and have the modelers show what they're working on.
Certainly, Jim. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started right now, and we will start off with MyBuild. This is MyBuild. Chris can't be here this week, so Jim and I will try together to fill in. So our first builder is Martin Brechbiel. So Martin, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Okay. It's a lovely picture of me that I made a model out of. No, there you go. My usual exercise when I'm bored or have too much time on my hands, I just build another maintenance of way car. And no particular origins of this one other than an amalgamation of photos and my imagination. Yeah, thank you. So it just the scratch, it's an entirely scratch built car, lots of wood, brass and all kinds of bits and pieces, full underbody, nothing inside. There's a little yellow puddle next to the dog, so that's what the excitement's about. You can't have the dog piddling on the merchandise. The windows don't slide, but I thought they would be interesting if they did. Someday I'll do that again. Not just a piece of brass that's folded into a Z for a deflector over the windows. I don't know if there's any more or not.
That's the last one.
That's only sent one? Hooray.
That's it. Just one, just amazing. So
No.
anyone got any questions for Martin?
Martin, why do you build maintenance away cars? What about them? Why is that so important to you?
They're just very entertaining. I can get away with anything. If I can imagine it, somebody else probably already did and put it to use. And, it goes to that art thing. I can have fun with it, be creative, explore whatever I feel like and say, what if, and then answer it.
Gotcha.
You kind of thumb your nose and say it doesn't have to be prototypical. Means away cars where it can be an amalgamation. That's great.
Well, that's true. And I have built, I don't know, I guess 70 or 80 maintenance away cars. I actually have built one prototype one. It has happened.
There you go.
Yeah, it was probably a mistake, but I did it.
Nice model.
Okay, so next we're going to, I got to get Martin. This is interesting challenge here. Our next modeler is actually Chris Course, and Chris is not here, so he won't be able to narrate, but this is Chris's build of the Tom York kit. So you can kind of get an idea of what he did on the kit, his initial view, and he can probably talk to you about how he did it, but I think everyone kind of can imagine that. Can imagine it from what we saw from Tom, but it looks very nice. Very nice color tones on it.
Chris is really proud of this structure that he's got here.
Very nice.
Admires Tom tremendously. Tom sold out. Every one of these is now gone. So I think that's great. But Chris spent a lot of time and effort trying to get this weathered and so on. He did something different. He told me he did not start by painting the building white. He just started with the weathering.
Excellent. So that was Chris's way, and hopefully at some point maybe do more of a wrap up with others that might have built them and talk about the techniques, etc.
Yep.
So with that, our next candidate is Bob Davidson.
All right, why don't you go to the first one?
Yep, here we go.
So this is a project, my layout is based in Brooklyn around the Gowanus Canal. And this is a prototype photo of the Kentile Floors factory. And I was intrigued by this because Foss scale models just came out with a kit version of this. But I wanted to try to scratch build it using my laser cutter. So go to the next slide. So here you can see I've the left-hand picture shows the face frame of the sign. And then I actually took a picture of a sheet inside the laser cutter. I used 0.8 millimeter plywood to build the structure. And those lines that I cut those are a 32nd of an inch wide. So they basically work out to be about a 32nd inch square, which in HO scale worked out to what I wanted it to look like. We can go to the next one. So here you can see I've started assembling the face frame with those girts. I used CA and I actually used some PVA too. And then next slide. So here you can see it's assembled. I still have some cross bracing to do on it and some other support work. So as I say, this is in progress. I haven't finished it yet, Next slide. Then to do the letters, the lettering on the, and this is one of the things I didn't care for in the model, the letters on the prototype were what's called channel letters. So there was neon set inside a three-dimensional box. So the top left photo shows I cut the lettering backs out of that same 0.8 millimeter plywood. And then the lower right photo shows the reveals. Those are actually about a 32nd of an inch thick cutouts out of 1/8 inch MDF. So if we go to the last picture, so here you can see this is how the lettering will all go together to create these channel letters for the sign. So hopefully I'll be back in the next My Build and be able to show this to you all painted and assembled. So, but I was pretty excited about using the laser cutter. I did all the drawings in Illustrator and it just worked out great. So any questions?
That is outstanding. I've never seen anything like that before. I'm really interested to see how your lettering is going to finally end up.
Yeah. All righty. Thank you.
Okay, our next presenter is Gary Sherrill.
Yeah, this is the stagecoach that I built a while back. It's a Jordan model. And I got some of the, I got 4 horses. And when I got the horses, they were just plain. So what I did was I took some electrical tape, cut it very thin, and I made all the harnesses in that for the horses, and then ran the lines along to the seating area, hooked it up to the brake, and the one driver, he's out in front just settling the horses down. The whole thing was mounted on a piece of styrene and then covered with real dirt. And prior to setting the model down, I ran rungs down the length of it, so that it sort of shows a road path that these would have traveled on. But this is the finished stagecoach with the horses all done.
Beautiful. That's really beautiful. That's HO, right?
That's HO, yeah.
Is that John Wayne or Kirk Douglas up front?
I'm not sure. What I did here was Pat Rivard gave me an article that he came across. These are HO scale undecorated AccuRail cars. And the article basically talked about how to really weather these cars. So basically they've lost their coloring. And what I did was I started painting them up into the natural brown color obviously is gone. And I wanted it heavily weathered. What I did was they were painted a very shallow gray, and then all the side framings were painted boxcar brown, and then another coat of washes were put on to darken and lighten the grays. And this is the other car. I did two cars. This is the other one. A very light wash of rust was put over everything, run down the steel side frames, supporting bars and that. And then the deckling was put on and then faded with the distress pens. And they look, it actually came out quite nice. I was very happy with the way it came out. This is making plastic look like wood.
Very nice, very nice. Comes out, looks very much like a older wooden boxcar.
Yeah, it's extremely faded.
Yep.
I'm quite happy with the way they turned out. Same with the roof walk was
Yeah.
same way, same method.
It's very nice, Gary. With the wood, the paint will disappear first and stay longer on the metal parts.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good. Very
There's
nice.
a lot of rust seepage into the wood.
Mm-hmm. Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, well, our next modeler is Ron Walters. Father Ron, here he is.
Hello.
And a model.
Look
Well,
at
I've shown the one on the left before. This is the Palace Theater from San Antonio, Texas. The one I showed before just had the sign up. It didn't have all of the wire and chain to secure the sign to keep it from falling. So I've added all of that. The one on the right is the church from St. Mary's Church. So I thought I'd show that. That was one of our MyBuilds, and so I've shown you my build of it. I used what's they call it, avocado, I think, or light avocado is the name of the acrylic paint for the green, and the rest is an off-white. And then I think that second set of directions that I showed how to draw something in Inkscape. I talked about the Capella del Sol, and here's my rendering of that in wood. It's constructed behind all of that is the basic frame of the building is basswood, and I used, I think I might have mentioned a long time ago, I have a friend who smokes cigars, and he gives me all the cedar wrappings. So what you see there is all cedar, very thin. The paneling on the side of the building, the clapboard paneling is, golly, if it's even a half of a millimeter thick, it's very, very thin. It's almost like working with tissue paper, cutting it into 1 foot strips. Yeah. And then the top is the cedar separation between the layers of cigars in the cigar box, and everything else is basswood strip. The corners there and those are all from, I don't know, well, I guess it's Micromark or one of those companies that makes that wooden angle. And I used the wood stain pens to stain the color of the basswood for that. And the doors are tissue, plastic tissue. But that's what I've been doing in my spare time right now, rendering that painting actually into a reality. So it still needs, go back again. It still needs some weathering. Obviously, you don't see any of the weathering on it yet. The next one is one of the MyBuilds that you did a long time ago, that Banta warehouse. I decided to do that, and the flooring there is all added. That wasn't in the kit. I've added the flooring, and then I decided to put an interior. This is a warehouse or transfer, whatever. I don't have the roof done yet. You can see in the background there some of that very, very thin cedar strips. And I put some figures in there. I've got some more interior to put into the warehouse. But that's all I've done on that so far. The kit basically came with only one sheet of the strips for the side of the building, And so I had to contact Bill Banta and say, can I have a second one? Since it's supposed to have two. So he sent me an entire set of paneling. So I've got some extra strips now I can use on some other building.
Looks very nice.
That's
Very
what I've been
nice.
working on.
Any questions?
I love the model with the cigar cedar stuff. That to me is it's cheap because it's free.
Yes.
And I have a liquor store here in Florida that sells cigars, and they save all of that for me. And I go by once every 2 weeks and pick up a black sack of that stuff, all different shapes and sizes and everything else. But the thin stuff is what I use for my shingle roofs.
Yes. It's very thin. It's tissue paper, literally.
Yeah.
And so I had to be very careful in cutting it into strips.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, our next modeler is Ray. So hang on, I've got to get Ray up here. There we go. I think we should
It's actually Roy.
Roy, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Misreading
It's spelled
here.
wrong there too. But, you got the pictures?
And here we go.
Okay, so this is a American Model Builders barn. And that's built pretty close to what the instructions show. So what's the big changes? Well, as you can see at one end of the barn, I left the doors open. And at the one on the right, I actually took those doors off because they're the same on the other end, and closed the area up just a little bit and put a roll-up door in there so I could actually put a man door in, because the building has no man door. And I thought that's kind of strange. Every barn I've seen always has a man door. And so that's the changes there. The hardest part of this whole build was all the shingles, getting all the shingles on and getting them placed pretty close to correct. And then what I also did was this, I made the top quarter of the roof so it would actually open so I could get at some of the stuff inside. So what I did was I built a floor about right where the line is across the model for a second story inside the model, because there's nothing in it. And so I put a floor in there and I put a stairwell in, and then I put some incandescent lighting, 2 bulbs in the upper floor, one over the stairwell and one just general lighting. And yeah, that's better. And then the downstairs, you can see there's soft incandescent lighting. And on the outside, I put LED lighting as yard lights. And so the paint was Tamiya, actually Tamiya paint that used for on cars and that kind of stuff, but it came out of the airbrush real nice. And also you can brush it. And on the inside, I used Hunter Line's white stain for the whitewash, and now the walls are all whitewashed inside. So that's my changes from what the kit looked like. So that was kind of fun doing that. Yeah, it wasn't too challenging. What was challenging was like I said, the shingles. And this guy is a little kit. You guys all encouraged me to try a cardboard kit. I never wanted to try a cardboard kit, and just said, cardboard kits I looked at didn't interest me. But I had picked this one up a few years ago, and so the kit's made by an English company, and I thought I still had the information, but I went looking for it tonight. I couldn't find it. So this kit is basically, as the instructions say, the weathering is included right in the cardboard. So it's all cardboard. And the interesting thing is they give you the Quonset hut round part, and you have to bend it around and use elastic bands or whatever to get it to fit up against the walls. And then you glue it on the bottom side. And that's what makes the kit. So you guys encouraged me, number one, to build the cardboard one and to get going on some wood models. I've done wood models before, but the barn is definitely the biggest one I've done. So that's kind of, it was kind of interesting, kind of fun. And so it makes a very nice model, both of them. I haven't weathered the barn at all yet. That'll come later when I figure where it's going on the layout. Thank you very much.
Very nice. So they're both HO scale, I assume.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, welcome back to the hobby. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
Super.
Roy, is that a Scale Scenery? Is that the company from Great Britain?
I'm not sure. You could be right. I think it's an English company. It seems to me. I do have a little card here that this is 3DK. These guys also make stuff. And I just phoned the number tonight to see if the guy was in, and I couldn't get a hold of him. But if you just turn my camera back on, I'll just hold it there if somebody wants to look at the thing. No, I guess he's not. Okay, that's fine. So thank you again, guys.
Thank you, Roy.
Yeah, you actually were up, so people could see it. You can also, if you want, you can just type it in the chat. Just click on the chat button and type the link in the chat.
I'll probably do that next time. And I'll confirm first by phone that this guy's still around. He actually operates out of Hamilton, Ontario.
Sounds good.
20 minutes down the road from here.
Thanks, and we look forward to seeing the barn with some weathering next time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks. So that completes the My Build for this week. In a month, August 23rd, will be the My Build, and this is the August Harvest Challenge. So this is the idea to bring your harvest scene, something that represents the end of the summer, and Chris asks you to get your photos to him. The Rail Runner, his email is in the chat if you want to get it. Really try to get them to him early so he has time to put them together. And that pretty much concludes it, Jim, and I'll throw it back to you.
Well, Phil, I really appreciate you doing this tonight and filling in for Chris. But great job, fantastic. And it was so nice to see some of these models. And it was nice to hear that, somebody's, getting out of the easy chair and starting to model again. That's what the show is all about. So thank you so much for doing that. Well, it pretty much is our show for tonight. We have a caboose for you to end it. And I think we can run that now. Well, folks, I really appreciate your coming and being with us this evening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Most importantly, I hope